You know that feeling like when you sense something big is shifting, kind of like the early internet? That's sort of the vibe around the Solana network right now. It's really aiming to bring blockchain to, well, basically everyone. And since you're likely someone who wants to get the core ideas without getting lost in all the jargon, we've pulled together some really interesting stuff to explore, get you right up to speed on what's actually important with Solana today.
Exactly. Think of this as your curated path to understanding what's really going on with Solana. We're not just scratching the surface here. We're trying to pull out the key developments, the fundamental strengths that are making people take notice.
Right.
The goal is to give you a clear picture. Why are developers jumping in? Why are big institutions starting to look? What does it mean in the real world? We've got quite a mix of info, so yeah, let's get into it.
Okay, let's unpack this then.
Yeah.
One of the first things that jumps out is just the sheer speed of development happening.
Yeah.
This Electric Capital report says Solana has the fastest growing ecosystem for new builders. The fastest.
Exactly. Not just growing fast, but the fastest. So what do you think is fueling that? Why are developers flocking there?
That's a really, really important question. It suggests something about Solana's core setup is, well, really attractive to the people actually creating these new apps. It could be a mix of things, right? Maybe the tools are just easier to use. Or maybe the super low transaction costs make it cheaper to, experiment, try new things.
Less risky to build, yeah.
Exactly. Or maybe there's just a strong community feel, a sense of potential that's pulling people in. But whatever the reason, this influx of talent, it's a pretty strong sign of the platform's potential for growth, for innovation, which, ultimately means more interesting apps for you down the line.
And it looks like that developer activity is actually leading to real usage. That same report pointed out that, get this, 81% of all decentralized exchange DEX transactions happen on Solana.
Wow, 81.
That's dominant. What does that tell us about how people are actually using the network? Well, what's really telling there is that it's not just theory anymore, right? DEXs are where people actively trade crypto, manage their assets.
Yeah.
So Solana dominating that space, it suggests users find it, practical, efficient for these kinds of financial things.
Okay.
It shows a level of trust, people relying on it for a core crypto function. That's pretty significant for its overall health.
And here's where it gets really interesting for me. It's not just the crypto folks noticing.
Right.
We're seeing big established players from traditional finance dipping their toes in. Franklin Templeton. I mean, that's a huge name in investing. They've put their on-chain U.S. government money fund, FOBXX, onto Solana.
Via their BNGI platform.
Exactly. Why is it such a big deal when a traditional giant like Franklin Templeton gets involved?
Well, when a firm like that, with all their history and, regulatory oversight, when they integrate with a blockchain like Solana, it's a major validation.
Right, like a stamp of approval almost.
Yeah, kind of. It signals that they see the tech as maturing, as potentially viable for regulated financial products on-chain. This could potentially open up DeFi to a much broader, more traditional investor audience. It could really be a sign of more institutional adoption to come, which would be massive for Solana's growth and maybe even stability.
So beyond just adoption, it seems Solana's also pushing the tech forward. There's this launch of confidential balances. Token extensions, saw that in the Helios blog. Now, token extensions. That sounds like adding extra features to a basic crypto token.
That's exactly it. Think of them as like plugins for tokens. Solana's setup lets developers add specific rules or abilities.
Gotcha.
And in this case, the confidential balances bit lets users keep their token amounts private to some extent.
Okay, privacy is a big topic.
It is. And what's really interesting here is they're aiming to do it in a way that still works with regulations. So you could get the privacy needed for certain uses, but the network itself can still, comply with the rules. It's about finding that balance, which is, frankly, often a huge challenge in crypto.
Yeah, that sounds tricky. But it's not all just deep tech and big finance, is it? Seems like there's also a real push to get everyday users involved. I saw something about an on-chain holiday event.
Yeah.
What was that about? Like a Solana-powered shopping thing?
Exactly. The on-chain holiday was a pretty smart way to show off Solana's real-world use.
Yeah.
They let people spend stable coins, even some meme coins, on actual stuff from different brands.
Oh, interesting. Like real merchandise.
Yeah, real merchandise. It took blockchain beyond just trading and speculation. It gave people a concrete way to use crypto for everyday-ish transactions, trying to make the tech feel more accessible, more real.
Okay, showing not just telling. I like that.
pretty much.
And it seems that focus on building and scaling is carrying on. There's this upcoming event in New York, Solana Accelerate. The tagline is ship and scale or die, which sounds intense.
Yeah, it's pretty direct.
What's the significance of focusing an event just on shipping and scaling?
Well, that tagline really nails the current phase, doesn't it? Shipping is about actually building and launching apps, getting stuff out there.
Right.
And scaling is the crucial part, making sure the network can handle more users, more transactions, without falling over.
Okay.
So an event focused on that suggests they know Solana's long-term success depends on both building cool things and having the horsepower to support them when people actually use them. It's about moving from theory to, real scalable solutions, especially targeting American innovation, it seems.
Okay, so we've covered the buzz, the adoption, the new features. Let's maybe dig into the core tech, the engine behind it all.
Yep.
The sources highlight some key advantages, like super fast block times around 400 milliseconds.
Yeah, that's incredibly fast, near instant.
How does that speed really change things for a user compared to, say, slower blockchains?
Oh, it's a game changer for the user experience, honestly. On slower chains, you click something, then you wait seconds, maybe minutes, for confirmation.
Right. That lag can be frustrating.
Exactly. Solana's speed makes interactions feel smooth, almost instant, like using a regular website or app.
Yeah.
That responsiveness, it makes a huge difference in keeping users happy and engaged.
And that speed is tied to its scalability, right? We see these claims, thousands of transactions per second, and all while keeping fees tiny, like less than a quarter of a cent for developers and users.
Yeah, that combination is key.
How do they pull that off? High speed, high volume, low cost.
Well, Solana's architecture was really designed from the get-go to tackle the scaling problems other chains ran into. Without getting super technical, they use some clever innovations, like something called proof of history, which helps order transactions really efficiently, allows them to process way more stuff in parallel, that directly leads to the faster speeds and lower fees compared to networks that process things more one after the other.
Gotcha. More parallel processing.
Basically, yeah. Optimizing the whole pipeline for high performance.
Now, decentralization, always crucial in blockchain. Sources say Solana has thousands of independent validator nodes.
Yes.
Why is having lots of different validators so important for security and keeping the network running?
A large, independent set of validators makes the network much harder to attack. No single group can easily take control or censor transactions.
It's strength in numbers.
Exactly.
Right.
And having them spread out geographically adds resilience too. If one region has issues, the network keeps going. It's fundamental to what blockchain is supposed to be about. Security, transparency, censorship resistance.
Okay. And one last tech point. Energy efficiency. That's a big concern these days.
Definitely.
It's mentioned a Solana transaction uses about the same energy as a few Google searches. How's it manage that?
It mainly comes down to using proof of stake.
Not proof of work.
Right. Proof of stake doesn't rely on massive amounts of computing power to validate transactions, unlike proof of work which some older chains use. Instead, validators are chosen based on the stake they hold. It's just inherently much, much more energy efficient. That, plus other design tweaks, gives it a much smaller carbon footprint, which is increasingly important, for the environment, but also for adoption.
So it feels like all these technical points, the speed, scale, low fees, decentralization, energy efficiency, it all ladders up to this goal of mass adoption that keeps coming up.
Exactly right.
It's not just tech for tech's sake. It's building something that millions, maybe billions of people could actually use for all sorts of things.
Precisely. The whole design philosophy seems geared towards removing the friction, the barriers that have traditionally held back blockchain use, making it a viable, practical option for everyday apps and users.
And we're starting to see real examples of that potential, right? These use cases, like XP looking at using Solana to cut event ticket fees. That's something everyone hates, those high fees.
Oh, yeah. Blockchain could bring a lot more transparency there, maybe cut out some middlemen. Issuing tickets as, say, NFTs on Solana could also fight fraud and give organizers and fans more control.
Interesting.
XP exploring that shows a really practical way Solana's features could fix a common annoyance.
And then there's Boba Guys, the bubble tea chain, using a Solana loyalty program and seeing a big jump in sales.
Yeah, that's a great example. Shows it's not just about finance. Using a Solana-based program, maybe they could offer cooler rewards, more engaging stuff for customers. And clearly, it worked for them if sales went up. Shows the tech can deliver real business value, drive engagement.
Then you have Homebase tokenizing a rental property on Solana. That feels bigger picture, changing how we own things.
It definitely points in that direction. Tokenization lets you break ownership into smaller pieces.
Fractional ownership.
Exactly. Makes things like real estate accessible to more people who maybe couldn't afford a whole property. It could also simplify buying, selling, managing property. Less paperwork, maybe faster deals. Homebase doing that is a tangible glimpse of that future.
And HiveMapper was really fascinating too. Decentralizing mapping. Using Solana to power real-time map data collection with incentives.
Yeah, HiveMapper is really cool. It shows how decentralized networks can gather info at scale. By paying people, essentially, to contribute map data using dash cams, they can build a super detailed, up-to-date map, maybe better than the traditional ways.
Wow.
It's a really neat example of Web3 ideas in action, using the community to build something valuable.
And finally, this one feels potentially huge. Solana Pay integrating with Shopify.
Right.
Available to potentially millions of businesses for instant USDC payments, low fees, net zero emissions.
That integration could be a massive deal for e-commerce.
How so?
While offering merchants a payment option that's fast, incredibly cheap, and environmentally friendly right within Shopify, that could seriously cut costs for businesses. And it's seamless for shoppers using USDC, a stablecoin, so the price doesn't jump around.
Right, stability helps.
Plus, the green angle resonates more and more. This could really push blockchain payments into the mainstream online shopping world.
So, beyond the tech, the use cases, the big partners, there's clearly a community aspect here too.
Absolutely vital.
Sources talk about a thriving community, creators, artists, developers. Why is that so important for a blockchain's health?
An active community is honestly the lifeblood for any open source tech, especially blockchain. It's where the innovation bubbles up, where people collaborate, test ideas, help each other out. A strong community creates this positive cycle. It attracts more smart people, which leads to more cool stuff being built, which attracts more users, and so on. Solana having that thriving community, that's a huge plus.
And for anyone listening who's maybe intrigued and wants to learn more or even get involved, there are resources mentioned like Solana Grants, this Break Solana initiative, the blog, newsletter. Sounds like ways to plug in.
For sure. Those are really important entry points. Grants for developers who need funding, Break Solana for security folks wanting to test the network's limits, and the blog and newsletter just to stay up to date. It shows it's an open ecosystem, lots of ways to participate if you're interested.
Okay, so wrapping up this deep dive then, the picture we're getting from all this material is, well, it's an ecosystem in high gear.
Yeah, multifaceted growth seems like the theme.
Right. We've seen that surge in developers, real dominance in DAX trading, growing interest from serious traditional finance players, plus ongoing tech innovation like those token extensions, and real efforts to connect with everyday users.
That sums it up well. We touched on new features for privacy that still aim for compliance, those user-focused things like the on-chain holiday, and that clear focus on building the core infrastructure to be scalable, fast, cheap, efficient.
Right.
And all those technical strengths are actually being used now in more and more practical ways, plus that vibrant community backing it all up.
It really does paint a picture of a blockchain moving beyond just theory into something with tangible, real-world impact across a lot of different areas.
Indeed. And maybe that leaves us, and you listening, with a final thought to chew on. What is the long-term impact going to be as these super fast, low-cost blockchains like Solana keep evolving, and as they get more intertwined with traditional finance, with our everyday online lives, it feels like a pretty profound shift, potentially. Definitely something worth keeping an eye on and trying to understand.